Hi everyone, my name is Lorelei and I am a childcare associate at the Casco Bay branch of the Southern Maine YMCA. Today we're going to be learning how to weave. Let's get started. Alright, for this project we are going to need some yarn. It can be any size, it can be scrap yarn. You can use some thread or you can just use yarn, but I'm going to use thread for this. You'll need a pair of scissors, a needle, or we can just use a pencil. We also need a ruler and some tape. Alright, let's get started. First, we are going to make our loom. To do that, we're going to draw notches on the top and the bottom of our loom. This is the shorter side of our piece of cardboard. I'm going to start with 1 centimeter notches. If you would like, you can make them wider or shorter, but I think 1 centimeter is a pretty good place to start. So I'm doing 14 across, and then I'm going to draw one line that's going to go along the long side of my loom. This is just to see where the notch is going to start on the other side so that they are all even. So I'll do 14 on this side as well. And then I'm going to connect all of those lines. This helps us just see where the thread is going to go and make sure we have the same amount of lines. So now that we are done, we have 14 lines that go right across. This is going to mark where our notches will go. So now we're going to cut V shapes out of the ends of each of those lines just to create a little notch. If you have softer cardboard, you can just make one line, but for this thicker cardboard that I have, I like to make a V shape so I know that my yarn will stick in there. Make sure you get rid of all those extra pieces of cardboard stuck in there. We're going to flip it over and do the same thing to the other side of the loom. Alright, now we have our loom with 14 notches going across the top and the bottom. So now we can go ahead and get this ready for weaving. Alright, I'm going to use thread to prep our loom, but you can use yarn as well. This is just going to make it easier for me to distinguish which pieces are going to be on the loom versus which pieces we are actually weaving on the loom. So I'm going to take my tape. You can use any kind of tape for this. I have blue painter's tape, but you can use anything stronger if you would like. Alright, we are going to take our thread and tape it to the back of our loom. Make sure that it's nice and secure on the back. We're going to make sure that it's about halfway down the loom. We don't want it to be too close to the top or the bottom because that's not going to work for us. So now we're going to find a notch that's closest to where the direction of our string is leading us. For mine, that is going down towards the bottom right. So I'm going to put that through the notch and bring it around to the front. And we're actually going to follow those lines we made in pencil, wrapping around each notch and coming around to the second. And then to the second on the bottom, and then the third, and the third on the bottom. Notice how we're making straight lines, and I'm going from the third notch to the third, and not the third notch to the fourth notch. We're going to make sure these lines are nice and straight. It should be tight, but don't worry too much about that. As long as it's not falling off the loom, you are okay. Alright, now that we are done, we are going to bring our extra yarn to the back, and you have a couple options. Let's cut it off so it's at least, again, halfway down the loom, so we can reach the other side. We can either tape this down, or what I like to do is take this piece off, and we're going to tie those ends together. You're more than welcome to tape all your pieces to the back, but I find that after a while, that tape will fall off no matter how strong it is. So let's tie these together. And I think this is the most secure way to attach your thread to your loom. Alright, now that our strings are all attached, you'll notice that when we pick it up, there isn't much room underneath the strings, and we need a little bit of room there to weave. So we're going to create a bridge. I'm using a pencil for this. We can also use a pen or a marker, or just get creative with any object you can find. You're going to put this pencil under all of those strings and pull it to the top. And you'll notice that that creates space in between your loom and your thread. That will give you plenty of space to weave. Alright, now that we have all our materials ready, we can start weaving. We're going to need scissors, a pencil, or a needle. So these needles are plastic sewing needles. You can buy them on Amazon for super cheap. I think I got this one in a pack of 10 for maybe $1 or $2. So definitely worth getting, but you don't need it for this project if you don't have one already. We can also use a pencil, and I'll show you how we'll do that. We're going to pick any color yarn that we want. I'm going to start with this dark purple, and I'm going to take about an arm's length. So I'm just going to spread my arms across to measure out a good piece of yarn. We'll cut that off. Remember, the longer the piece of yarn you have, the harder it is going to be to work with, just because you have a lot of yarn there. But for this, I'm going to take an arm's length across and just take the tape that I had from earlier, and I'm going to tape that piece of yarn to the end of my pencil. Pretty simple. And a nice alternative to not having a plastic needle. Alright, now we're ready to do some weaving. So the process of weaving is going over and under and over and under, or going under and over and under and over repeatedly. So I'm going to start on the right side of my loom, and I'm going to take the tip of my pencil and just go under that first thread. Then I'm going to go over the second, and under, and over. And I'm going to do the same thing going all the way across. This takes a little bit of practice, so don't worry if you mess up a couple times, it happens. And once you reach the very end, you're going to pull that pencil all the way through. And we're going to pull most of our yarn all the way through that loom. But we don't want to pull it all the way. We want to leave a little bit of a tail there that's maybe 2 inches or about the size of your finger. So that's how I measure my tails. So now that we are done with our first row and our yarn is going over and under each piece of thread, we're going to go back across. So starting on the side of our loom that our yarn is on, we are going to check that last stitch. The last stitch is going over, so we need to go under. If you had an odd number of notches to start with, then your last stitch would have probably been an under, which means you need to go over. You're always going to follow that pattern no matter how many pieces of thread you have. So now we're going to pull our pencil all the way through. And unlike last time, we are not going to leave a tail at the end. We instead have this little loop. So we're going to keep pulling that. But we don't want to pull too tightly, because that's going to happen to our thread. So we're going to loosen that up a little bit. Alright, we're going to leave it just like that. So it's not too tight, but it's also not hanging off the edge. And I'm going to pull this down a little bit. That's called combing, and I'll show you how to do that more as we go. So now we are just going to continue going back and forth throughout the entire piece, going over and under just like we have been. A second ago, I mentioned combing. Combing is the act of pulling down the yarn on your loom. So the strength of the loom is not by how tight you pull it across, but how much you pull it down. So you're going to continue to weave and comb as you work up your loom. Now remember to always check that last stitch. If you ended with an over, you need to start under. And if you ended with an under, you need to start over. I'll show you what happens if you don't pay attention to that. So I ended with an over, so now I started with an over. And as I go back through my loom, everything looks normal until when I pull my yarn through, it's all going to just unravel. So that's why we need to make sure that we're always checking that last stitch. So now just practice your weaving, going back and forth across your loom and always going over and under and over and under. Good luck! So now I've reached the end of my piece of yarn. So the first step in this process is just to take off the tape and the yarn from the pencil or your needle. Always remember to comb down that yarn. And now we have 2 tails, and I'll show you how to start a new piece of yarn. So you can either start with the same color or any other color that you have. So I'm going to start with this purple. So you have 2 options to start a new piece of yarn. You can either tie the 2 together and keep weaving as you did, but what I like to do is leave that tail there, and I'm just going to start a new piece. So I'm going to get some tape and tape it to my pencil, and don't worry about those little tails that hang off. If you don't like them, there's a way to tuck them away at the end, but for now we're just going to leave all those tails there. Now that's all fastened correctly, we can start weaving again. So we're not going to start on the right side because we happen to end on the left side. So you're going to keep going in the direction that your yarn is on. So if your yarn is on the left side, you're going to start on the left side. So let's start under because our last stitch was over, and we're just going to keep going like we usually would. And make sure that when we pull that all the way through, that we are remembering that there will be a tail at the end. So we're going to leave about 2 inches or the length of your finger for that tail. And we can pull that out just a little bit if we need to. And then we'll start at the other side and just keep going. So here's where we need to remember to comb. Even though we've done all of these rows, we still need to remember to pull our yarn down. So if you look really closely, you can see all of those white pieces of thread. Those are the pieces that are going up and down on our loom. So we're going to pull down until we can't see that anymore. Remember, the more you pull down and comb on your loom, the stronger it's going to be. Now, if you start to feel impatient because you've been weaving for a long time but it doesn't look like you've done much, I would recommend grabbing a chunkier yarn. This yarn is much thicker than what I was using before, which means that it will take up more room on my loom. So let's try that out if you're getting a little frustrated. You can use just about any thickness of yarn, string, or ribbon if you want to get creative with this. Stick with it for a little bit and I'll show you some more fun stuff you can do later. Alright, take a moment to appreciate all the hard work you've done, and let's start thinking about those tails. So if you don't like the tails, don't worry, we can get rid of them at the end, but for right now, let's try something a little different. So I have my pink yarn, you can pick whatever color you want, and I'm going to weave it through like normal. When I pull it through, just like before, I'm going to leave that tail on the other side. Just like that, maybe about 2 inches or so. Now I'm going to weave all the way back. And this time I'm going to leave tails on both sides, so I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to pull the yarn almost all the way through, but I'm going to leave enough room for, let's untangle that. I'll leave about that much space. And cut them there, so now I have 2 tails. Now I'm going to continue weaving, and each time I pull through, I'm going to leave about 2 inches of a loop, just like that. And I'll cut that off, leaving more tails. And I'm just gonna keep going back and forth like that until I have lots of tails, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Now I'm done with this section, but you can do as many as you'd like. Sometimes I like putting all of my tails on one side, or you can put them on both sides. It's up to you. You can do whatever you want. So what I like to do is when I'm done with this, I like to take my scissors and just trim those tails so they're all the same exact length. Alright, I think we're ready for something fun. We're going to need 2 different colors of yarn, and we're going to make blocks, which are interlocking sections of yarn. So to start, we're going to pick one color, and we're not going to weave all the way across. We're only going to weave in one section. So we got to pick the string that we want to interlock all of those shapes, so about halfway. So to do that, I'm going to take my pencil out and put it over half of the strings. So I'm not even going to think about those strings. I'm only going to worry about the ones that are raised. So using this first color, I'm going to still follow direction, so I have to check my last stitch to see if it was under or over. Mine was over, so I'm going to start under. So I'm going to weave all the way across, and I'm going to keep weaving as if these were my only strings. I'm going to completely ignore the strings that are underneath the pencil for now. Once you have your block done, however large you want it, you're going to cut off the excess yarn if there is any. Notice how I ended on the outside of the loom and not the inside. So now we can start on our next color. So let's switch up our needle or our pencil as needed. Now we can start on this side. So I'm going to move my pencil back underneath all of the pieces of thread, just like it was when we started. Before we weave, I'm going to spread out this side a little bit, just so it's easier to see what's going on. Now we can start on our left side. We are going to again check if we need to go over or under. In this case, we are going to go over. So we're going to weave until we reach that interlocking string, and I'll show you how we connect that. So let's pull our pencil all the way through this first half. And remember to leave that tail, just like we always have. And now we want to make sure that our weaving connects on one string. So we're going to go under that. Make sure our yarn doesn't get caught behind our loom. And we're going to go back in the other direction. So making sure I don't go back under, I'm going to go over and under and over just like I have before. So that's our first piece that interlocks. Now we are going to come back in that direction. And this is where we want to interlock. So I'm going to pull down that white piece. So it's going to go purple, white, and now purple again. I'm going to go under. So now you can start to see the pattern. We got purple, white, and the next time we go through, we will put purple and then white, and they will all interlock together. So now if you don't connect them on the same string, then they aren't going to be interlocking. They're going to have a hole in your weave. So instead of something connected, you'll have a little oval in there, which could be something that you would like to try out at some point. But right now, I'm just going to show you how to make the interlocking blocks. Alright, you did it. So now we can cut off any excess yarn and you can keep weaving however you want to do. So you'll see these interlocking pieces all on one string. We've got purple and white going back and forth. So you can use this to make any combination of blocks you want. You can use any combination of tails or weaving or colors and patterns and textures. Just have some fun with it, and next I'll show you how to take it all off when you're done. So when you've reached this point and you're thinking you're all done, it should be about 2 inches from the top or finger's length, however you want, and we're going to take it off the loom. So the first thing we'll do is get rid of that pencil. We don't need that bridge anymore. And now we're going to flip our entire loom upside down. So now we need to remove the thread on the back. To do this, we're going to cut it off, and we want to cut along the middle. We don't want to cut close to the top or the bottom because then we're not going to have enough room to work with. Alright, now that we're all done cutting, we want to be super careful because our weave is very fragile at this point. So we're going to take all of this thread and just pull it to either side of the loom. Just brush it right off. Now we can pick up our loom. We don't need that anymore. We can set it aside and use it as many times as we want in the future. Right now we have to deal with these threads. So if we don't do anything, they are just going to fall apart. So we're going to tie them together. I'm going to start at the bottom. It doesn't matter which side you start at. And I'm going to take 2 pieces of thread that are next to each other, and I'm going to tie them together. I'm going to make a square knot. Make sure that's nice and secure. Now that I tied together strings 1 and 2, I'm going to tie together strings 3 and 4. And I'm going to keep going, tying 2 strings together across the whole bottom. Now that I'm done with that side, I'm going to pull my weave down and do the same thing to the other side. Now that all of your thread is tied, your weave is not going to fall apart anymore. And you can either leave them like this, or what I like to do is gather them all up and cut them so they're all the same length. You could also choose to tie these to a stick and hang it on the wall, or however you want. So I'm going to cut one side and then cut the other. Alright, so now we get to make some decisions about those tails. I sometimes like to leave them because I think they're kind of fun, but if you don't want them, there are 2 things you can do. So the first option is you can find 2 pieces that are right next to each other and tie them together. So just like we did for the thread on the end, and make sure that's nice and tight. Sometimes I like to do 1 more knot just to be safe. Now it's nice and snug. We can cut those off. Now if you cut them too close to that knot, they can come undone, so I leave about 1 centimeter on either side. So that's one way to get rid of your tails, but another way without the knot showing is to take that plastic sewing needle and I'm going to weave it into my weave. So that means I'm just gonna try my best to kind of go in and out, in and out. Doesn't have to be perfect. And now I'm going to take that eye of the needle and I'm going to push that yarn through. And now I'm going to pull that needle out, which is going to tuck in that yarn. So I can kind of push things around so I hide what I just did, and I'm going to cut the excess yarn right off. So that's how you can get a smooth edge if you want that, but you can also do just about anything you want in this. So with these pieces, I'm going to cut them so that they're all the same length, but you can also leave them however you want. So you can either have a smooth edge, or you can have lots of tails, and it looks great on either side. Congratulations, you did it! Thank you for joining me today, everyone. I hope you had lots of fun. If you want to learn more about weaving and other techniques, you can go to this website, and have a nice day.